Hey, what's up, everybody? If you appreciate the format and you appreciate what we're doing here, then make sure you contribute to the Cash App. Make sure you contribute to the PayPal. Make sure you donate to the Super Chat. It's only you and your contributions that keep this thing going. Thanks. Content here at Dennis Spurling Unfiltered. Make sure you support it by sharing, and subscribing to the channel. And also, hit that little notification bell in the corner so that you'll get notice of each and every one of our live feeds.
Hi, my name is Stephanie, and these are my two adorable and handsome sons. And that is my ex-husband, attorney Dennis Spurling. He practices personal injury law and will be more than happy to help you with claims arising from automobile accidents. He doesn't get paid unless you get paid. And as we first wives know, the more our ex-husbands get paid, the more we get paid. So let me help him help you. Call Mr. Spurling at 713-229-0770.
Call my daddy.
Dramatization.
After a car wreck, you may have to fight with a highly trained insurance company rep whose job is to knock your damaged claim down and out. It's a bad idea to enter the ring alone against a trained boxer, and it could be a bad idea to fight against a big insurance company by yourself. When the bell rings, attorney Dennis Spurling will be there to fight for your rights. If you've been seriously injured in a car wreck, call me, attorney Dennis Spurling, at 866-529-2444. That's 866-529-2444.
Thank you, everybody, for your contributions. I appreciate it. Let's keep it going. Donate to the Super Chat. Donate to the PayPal. Donate to the Cash App. It's your contributions and your donations that'll cause for this platform to grow. Let our voice be the preeminent voice of Black America.
Tonight, the business of being Black is the impact of the child support system and its impact on Black fathers. I want people to know that this show is the male edition of the child support system and its impact, because for so long we have heard the woman's side, but have not bothered ourselves with the concern of how the child support system affects Black men. So this show is not about deadbeat dads or why men should or should not pay child support. I firmly believe that any man who participates in the birth of a child should financially, mentally, and physically support that child. I believe most fathers would agree with that. With that said, please welcome today's guest, radio and television personality, Don Amici. Hey, Don. Attorney Dennis Spurling. Hey, Attorney Spurling.
Hey, everybody.
Doctor of Clinical Psychology, Dr. Umar Johnson. Hello,
Good
Doctor.
evening.
And founder of My Child Says Daddy, Reggie Brass. Gentlemen, how are you tonight?
Good evening.
Good.
Let's start with the question that definitely needs answered. Why should Black people care about America's child support system?
Because it's affecting black families the most. You know, you got a system that's alienating a lot of fathers out of their kids' lives. You got a system that is financially bankrupting a lot of non-custodial parents here in the United States, and it's a corrupt system that is rife with double taxation, with alienation, and it really kind of tips the balance to one parent or over the welfare of the child, which is what child support was the intended aspect of it is. So it's just a corrupt system all the way around.
Well, here's what I would say about it. I'm not going to say that it's corrupt. It's supposed to be fair, but it's not fair because child support was based on women that was on welfare It was designed for the system to go back and get and coop the money from the person where the mother is on welfare, to go back and find that father so that he can pay his child support, so that she would not have to be on welfare. But now that the system is allowing everybody to go in and charm in, now it has become a weapon against men when it comes down to child support, because now it's like, if you don't pay me my child support, then you can't see your child. Not only that, but if women that's on welfare, you got to realize in 1996, the welfare system was reformed. Prior to that, the mothers that were on welfare would never legally identify who as fathers were. And that's why we as men.
Oh, yes. Attorney Spurling, hold that thought, Reggie. Attorney Spurling, why should Black people care about child support?
Well, the child support system affects not just Black men, but all men. It affects white, all races. But the thing is, as Malcolm X said, if the white man has a cold, the Black man has a flu. Because of the systematic and financial disparities that we face here in this country, you have Black men who are basically losing their freedom, their financial stability, because they can't pay back child support, because they can't pay child support. Many of whom are paying for children that aren't biologically theirs. There was a study that came out of the UK that said that 30% of men are paying child support for children that aren't even theirs. And so we have to understand that that's probably a similar number here in the United States. It's, in my opinion, is just another legal way to transfer wealth from one party to another. Now, you say that you think that all fathers should pay child support. I'm in disagreement.
I did not say that. I did not say that.
Well,
no.
Let me say it. I
did not say that. I said all fathers who participate in childbirth should be financially, mentally, and physically responsible for the child. And I mean, if the child is theirs.
Well, and even if the child is theirs, I think what we should do in order to make sure it's fair is we need to eliminate child support wherever possible and do 50-50 custody. That's what I think.
Absolutely.
You pay for the child while you're there, I'll pay for the child while the child is here.
I'm not in disagreement. I'm not in disagreement with that.
But other than that, what I think we need to do is we really need to understand that a vast majority of young men end up in jail for two reasons: marijuana and child support. And here's the thing: if you go to jail for child support, they can take your driver's license. If you're an over-the-road truck driver, that affects your ability to operate. I had a client once in New Orleans, and I don't want to take up too much of the time, but I had a client in New Orleans. He had gotten in a car accident. He couldn't work. His child support went in arrears. The lady, his child's mother, had the district attorney jumping down on him, trying to get the back child support. He didn't have a lawyer to represent him in family court. I was simply his personal injury attorney, but I had to jump in and defend him in that case, just because I knew that if this guy was not able to get back to work, then my firm at the time I worked for was going to have to try to figure out how we could finance him and help him take care of his bills until the doggone case was resolved. In other words, he was going to be a burden on me, so I had to jump in there. But normally, under normal circumstances, the women get a lawyer assigned to them by the state, i.e. the district attorney's office, and the men don't get a lawyer. This is worse than the criminal justice system, because at least in the criminal justice system, men get a public defendant. Even if you can't afford a lawyer, one will be assigned to you. But in a quasi-civil criminal matter called child support, which is neither criminal nor civil, but somewhere in between, they go in there by themselves, naked, with no protection, and usually these guys get hammered. So,
Dr. Umar, why should Black people care about the child support system in America?
Because the child support system, in my opinion, was created. The first federal child support law was issued in 1975. That is not a coincidence, because the 1970s was the decade of the economic castration of the Black male. That's when they started taking the factories out of our community. And that's when they started taking the building training programs out of our high schools. When President Bill Clinton reformed the child support system, and when he signed into law in 1998, the Deadbeat Parent Punishment Act, That was done specifically to recruit more Black men into the prison system, because 4 years earlier in 1994 with the federal crime bill, he gave $10 billion to new prison construction. And he needed to make sure that there would be enough inmates to fill those prisons. The child support system is not about taking care of children. The child support system is about incriminating the poorest element of African-American males who are living on less than $10,000 a year, and then punishing them for not being able to make a payment that in all reality, they will not be able to make.
You know, can I just jump in here real quick? There's a book by a young lady named Michelle Alexander, and it's called The New Jim Crow. And in this book, she talks about these mechanisms that are in place to create this underclass citizen devoid of rights. And the child support system is exactly that. You know, they can strip away your passport, they can strip away your driver's license, they can throw you in jail, all because a financial burden is placed upon you that you may not be able to meet. So if you don't understand what we're talking about and you look at us and you may think it's a bunch of men, you know, bitching about the child support system, read Michelle Alexander's book, The New Jim Crow, and you'll get a better understanding. Because the same thing that's happening in Florida, where felons are getting out and they serve their time, but yet they can't go vote until they pay their debt to society, the financial penalties, is the same thing that's kind of happening in the child support system. It's a mechanism in place to take you out of circulation and take away your rights.
We're going to take a quick break and we'll come right back on the Tammy McLeod Show on Fox Soul. Don't go anywhere.
My suggestion for...
I think she's referring to in terms of the child support. What's your suggestion for a woman receiving child support? But I think Attorney Spurling had a rather good suggestion, which was equal custody and equal pay. What are your thoughts on that, Dr. Umar?
I definitely like the idea of equal custody and equal pay. We also need to keep in mind that when it comes to Black men, there's two different groups. If you would, economically within the child support system. You have the professional Black men, and then you have your brothers who are working class and also impoverished. And it is the brothers who are working class and impoverished that we are most concerned about. Of course, the professional Black man can pay his child support, but what about the brother with a prison record, 2 or 3 strikes on his name, a GED, a high school diploma? And even if he wants to improve himself economically, he has a felony on his record that doesn't allow him to access the federal grants. He can't access the student loans. He's trapped. What about him? Why are we expecting men who can barely care for themselves to be able to pay child support for the child? And the other thing, we have to look at support as broader than just a financial contribution. It bothers me that we limit support to a financial contribution. He can be the babysitter. He can take him to school. He can be the aftercare provider. There's so many other ways that a father can support his child as opposed to just giving out money to the mother.
You know, that's an interesting thought, because I always say that men don't mind supporting women as long as they're sleeping with them. And then when they're not sleeping with her, they ain't really trying to support them anymore. But women, now I'm thinking about women. Women don't mind bearing the load when they sleeping with a man. They don't mind if he doesn't have a job. They don't mind if he doesn't pay the bills. There are women who will take a man at his worst. And if you can do that when you sleeping with him, then why can't you do it after you have the baby and participate in a way that Dr. Umar has suggested, knowing that man is unable to pay child support? Why can't he babysit? Why can't he take him to school, soccer practice, and those things? And women oftentimes don't feel that way after they've broken up. I want to go to a couple of more. Look, the chat is off the chain, y'all. Go ahead.
One of the first things that Dr. Umar, let me go with Dr. Umar, because he's correct with a lot of things that he's saying. Because one of the first persons who's really denying us access to our own children are the mother of the children. The other part of this is we have to educate men on how to deal with the system. And that's how and why I became into the system, because I was thrown into the system when I was married to the mother of my child. There's what they call a court order. They're using a court order because it's part of the law, as the attorney would agree. It's a court order. So no one is really teaching men the minute that we lose our jobs or the minute that we don't have the same financial responsibility that we used to have, we have to go to court in order to change or modify that court order. They're using the law to get us, but we're not being told we need to go back to court immediately to modify that court order so that we don't be behind in child support. The other part to this is when women are on welfare, the courts, the child support department, or people believe that they got to go talk to the child support department. The child support department is only a middle agency that's collecting on behalf of the court order. You don't go talk to the child support department, you go to court, because the only person that can change a court order is that judge. And no one is teaching and educating men that that's what we have to do. We have to go to court in order to change that court order, to modify that. This is what's going on. So therefore, I don't get in arrears. The other part to this is they give out over $150 million to fathers groups, supposedly father groups, to help them with these situations. But these people who get this money, they are not fathers groups. They're people who got to write grants professionally and put fathers in a circle and still mess them over. My child says daddy is here to help you, show you, educate you on how to work the system to get results. Because when the mother's on welfare, what she does is she never legally identifies who I am. Now they have some paperwork that's called paternity. It's called Declaration of Paternity. And the first sentence on here says, legally establish a parent-child relationship between the biological father and the child. When he reads this, he's thinking he's getting something, and he's not getting anything, because it tells him on the back end of this, in order for you to even want custody or child support, you've got to go to court. So the deal is we as fathers, when we have kids out of wedlock, we have no legal rights to that child until we take the mother to court. And that's
wow, that's interesting. Attorney Spurling, would you like to speak to that, Attorney Spurling? Is that true?
So here's the thing. The problem is that we as Black people, specifically Black men, we have traditionally had a tenuous relationship with the legal system here in the United States. Black men do not like going to court, especially if it has to do with a criminal matter or even a child support matter. They just don't want to do it. I get that. We don't have that in our culture. And so when you say something like, you know, all you got to do is go to court and change it, they don't want to go. You know, they don't want to. Here's the thing. If you ask a lawyer to get a custody agreement or establish paternity, it's going to be $5,000 as a retainer. It might end up costing $10,000 or $15,000 when it's all said and done, especially if the mother contests it. And not that she should contest it, but oftentimes what will happen, you want to file establish paternity, then she'll countersue and try and get child support. And so that creates a mess. It creates more money. So Black men saying, instead of doing that, what I'll do is I'll just give you some money under the table. You know, I'll give you some gifts, I'll buy some clothes. And the next thing you know, when the child is 16 years old, she's filing for back child support. And now you have to pay all those arrears. You got to try to come up with checks. And if you've been paying in cash, you don't get credit for all of that. So it's just a horrible system the way it's set up. Now, the other thing I want to bring up is this. 51% of Black men in America are not married and don't have children. 31% of Black men are married. So that, and live with their wives and their children. That leaves about 18% of Black men who are not married, who have children outside of wedlock. Now, couple that with about 70 to 80% of Black women who are having children out of wedlock. So when you look at it, it's about 18 to 20% of Black men who are impregnating the 70 to 80% of single Black mothers. That is something that we probably need to address at some point.
Those numbers confused me to no end. So there are only 18% of Black men.
51% of Black men don't have children and aren't married. 31% of Black men are married and they live with their wives.
Right.
So that leaves about 18, give or take a couple percent.
But you're saying these 18% of Black men are getting 70 to 80% Black women pregnant?
Yes.
Boy, okay. I tell you, there is no hope for a Black woman. We have no choices out here, do we?
No, even it's my I have a say so over you having an abortion or not. Meaning that if I never have sex with you, you can never have an abortion. We're taking these kids like it's a dog, like it's a puppy. We got to be serious. These are our children. Please.
Dr. Umar?
So yes, I think both gentlemen are right, the elder and the attorney. The issue is we have to keep in mind that a lot of the Black men we're talking about are working poor. So they cannot pay that $5,000 retainer for the paternity fee. We also have to recognize that the child support system itself is financially exploitative. There are fees associated with everything you do. If you're late with your payment, there's an interest rate there. There's an interest payment that has to be made. If you want to file a modification, that costs money. There is money associated with every single thing you do. So if you have a young father working poor who can barely make his monthly payment to begin with, and then on top of that, he's going to be bereft with a whole bunch of different fees for everything he wants to do to modify and improve the custody or the child support situation, it's going to be very tough for him. The system is unfair. That's why a lot of them have trouble staying in it. A lot of fathers will go. And once they see how unfair the system is, that's when they start checking out, because there's not a lot of justice in the child support system. And the Black community stakeholders, such as our politicians, our preachers, our community-based organizations, they're not saying enough about this, because the radical Black feminist movement has made people afraid to speak up for Black fathers who are being crushed under the child support weight, because you will be branded as someone who is soft on fathers who don't want to be responsible. And that's not correct. The true narrative is most fathers want to take care of their children, but you have a system that will call you a criminal if you can't take care of your child, but that same system won't give you a job so you can do so.
I want to reach into our soulmate comments real quick, because it is flooded, fellas. It is flooded. Maya K is through the roof. She is so angry. I have to address her. My children's father doesn't pay his child support, nor does he pay health insurance. So what about those men? Well, he shouldn't have children if he can't care for them, she says. He still has to step up and take care of his responsibility. So the mother's supposed to pull the financial weight. These men sound crazy, she says. Maya is on a roll here, but there are several people who are on a roll. Maya, I want to first share with you that no, I don't believe, and fellas, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe that anyone on this panel, nor I, believe that men should not be responsible for their children. That is not what this show is about.
Absolutely.
This show is about how the system of child support in America affects and impacts Black fathers from being their best, to be quite frank. I'm sorry, and it's unfortunate that the man you chose to have your child with has not been the man who has stepped up to the plate. That's an unfortunate decision that has happened. And it sounds like you're going to bear the responsibility up until the child becomes an adult. That's unfortunate too. But that's not what this show is about. It's about the impact of those fathers. We all think that the brother should be responsible for the child he bared with you. Does anybody disagree with that?
No, just so you hear it from a Black man, we all think that if you have a child, you need to be responsible for that mentally, physically, financially, emotionally, spiritually. You need to raise that child. And a lot of us do raise that child. We're just talking about a system. Now, you may be with a boy, not a man, and that's an issue you may need to do some soul searching on.
Not only that, but we got to take a look at how the system look at child support from fathers is how much money can you bring to the table, which means that the mother of that child will say, okay, wait a minute, are there some other ways that I can deal with this? Meaning that, can I let him raise the kids? Can I take the kids over to him and say, okay, look, what can you offer? Or let the kids live with him, half the time, versus the financial part, because it's not about just money, because we have taken child support and given it a different meaning that it's financial plus child support, meaning that I'm there helping, taking the kids to school, I'm picking them up, I'm getting haircuts, I'm doing whatever I have to do. That's child support.
Let me go back to another soulmate. Keith says, why are these Black fathers broke? And if he's broke, should he reconsider having kids? Well, I would imagine the part of that is it's not, I guess, unfortunately or fortunately for me, unfortunately and fortunately for me, it is not a man's decision typically whether a woman decides to have the child or not.
Well, also we have to be careful with that type of a conversation that says you should not be having children if you can't afford them, because there's people in this country who would love for the Black community to endorse that sort of a circumstance, because that would basically mean that a lot of fathers would not be able to reproduce because they don't have the economic wherewithal to provide for those children. We are not God. And we have to be very careful about telling people that they can't reproduce if they can afford. Because if that's the case, then America can simply create a situation where Black fathers won't be able to afford, and then nobody will be reproducing. Let us be clear. This country has been trying to reduce our numbers since we got here. So we have to make sure that as we have these conversations about child support and custody, that we don't feed into a racist narrative that says we should voluntarily stop reproducing ourselves.
Yeah, I think the Evans family did a good job. Logic Wins says to Maya K, well, I assume you knew his financial situation when you slept with him. Why is his situation a problem?
That's what family law judges say all the time. When women come down and complain about, oh, he's not paying his child support. Well, you knew he had 2 other children by 2 other women when you got pregnant with him, didn't you? And so what they'll say is there has to be some agency, as I said earlier, and this is that major point that I was trying to make, that you got about 20% of men having children with about 60 to 70 or 70 to 80% of the women outside of wedlock. Now, I'm not saying I have a problem with making children, but I'm saying that sometimes, ladies, some of these situations can be avoided if you made a better choice in the men. If you know he has no income, he has 2 or 3 other children outside of wedlock, and he hasn't married those women and he's not taking care of those children, you can avoid the situation by making a better choice or not having a child with that man. Even if you have a relationship, a grown-up adult relationship, not having children with that man is probably the best interest of that child and yourself. Because look what it's doing to the Black community. I heard Dr. Umar Johnson say this about 4 or 5 years ago. He said we don't have it was something about they trying to medicate our Black children. He said, no, we have there ain't no daddy in the house problem. And so when you don't have fathers in the house, you're going to have children running wild in the neighborhood. You don't have that authority figure. So again, it's not just about the child support system, but what that system does. And this is another point I want to drive on.
Hold that point. We got to take a quick break and come right back. And then I definitely want to talk about men with multiple babies when we return on the Tammy Mac Late Show on Fox Soul.
They can't afford.
Money. Underground Zone says, so you want broke MFs to have kids. I think a lot of broke people have kids, don't they?
Yeah, that's why a lot of women are on. You got to take a look at look at how many women chose to get on welfare. They used to see. We're not blaming the system. We're blaming Black men because the welfare system came in to take away Black men. But women have learned how to have kids, get on welfare, and then blame the man maybe 6, 10, 15 years later. They're broke too.
Attorney Spurling.
It's not all the sisters that are on welfare. You have a lot of working mothers who also go for child support. I think the bigger issue here, Tammy, is we have a broken community because Black people have no business going to the white man to ask him to reconcile family issues.
Absolutely.
That is the crux of right there. You're telling me that we're going back to the same man who has historically stolen our kids, sold our kids, beat our kids, destroyed the Black family? You mean to tell me we get out of slavery only to run back to Massa and say, Massa, can you serve as a conduit between me and the mother of our child? Can you tell me how much time I can spend with my child? Can you tell him how much money he should spend with his child? As far as I'm concerned, The child support system is a symptom. The problem is the broken Black community, where we can lay down to make babies, but we can't stand up together to take care of them.
Woo! Family advocate mediation support says, yeah.
I agree
hold
with
that thought, Reginald. Let me let Attorney Spurling get his thought in from the last break. Please, Attorney.
Yeah. So it's not just Black men. This is affecting all men across the United States. There's a financial incentive to keep the children from the fathers. There's a financial incentive to alienate the fathers. Here's the thing. If a mother decides that let's say she has a child from the time they're 0 years old till they're 8, 9, 10 years old. She wants to keep those children because she keeps getting that check. Well, at the time of 8, 9, 10 years old, if there's a boy child specifically, it might be a good idea for that child to go live with the father. But the mother doesn't want to give the child up, because if she gives the child up, then first she loses the check and she may have to pay him child support. So there's a financial incentive for the mother to keep the child in her possession. And here's another one that the district attorneys around the country will tell you. Oftentimes what the mothers will do, they will allege child abuse or some sort of domestic abuse so that they get supervised custody, because that then allows them to get even more money. So now not only do they get the child support they would normally get, but they get child support for having to basically have the child 100% of the time, and the father only see him supervised visit. So it's a system that's being manipulated. There's a financial, look at the windfalls that people get out in California. You got guys paying $25,000 a month. There was a story out that came out some years ago about Chris Brown. If you guys remember, he had a young lady who was pregnant here in Texas, and he and his attorneys, they fought it out, and he ended up getting the child here in Texas, getting the Texas court to have jurisdiction over the child. The reason he did that is because here in Texas, we have caps on child support, $25,000, $2,500 a month. So even though Chris Brown is this multimillionaire, he makes all his money, the most that you have to pay in the state of Texas is $2,500 per month. And that eliminates the financial incentive that women have to hold on to those children. That's one thing we do here in Texas.
That takes me to our celebrity conversation here. According to TMZ, Samantha Gibson, the soon-to-be ex-wife of Tyrese and mother of their 2-year-old daughter, is demanding $20,000 per month in child support. Tyrese has said these numbers are unreasonably high. So, fellas, I want to know what you're thinking. Let's kick it off with you, Don.
Well, I feel sympathy for Tyrese. Remember the last time he went through an issue with the child support, he kind of broke down on screenshot.
He did.
Yeah, he was, so I definitely feel sympathy. And the financial system incentive needs to be taken out of this. It's sad that that's the only thing that is looked upon when it comes to child support. And they do not take into consideration the emotional welfare, the spiritual welfare, that and the time that and influence that a father can provide that child, and that they actually need it when they calculate these things. And the system is really is horrible too. You get a man who goes to the child support system, he may get custody every first, third, fifth weekend of the month, spending a massive amount of money on child support. And it's just an unfair system all the way around. I feel for Tyrese. Tyrese is a working actor. He's out here trying to make his money. I mean, I don't know if he's wealthy. I know he's probably well off, and $25,000 over time will eat him up. And it's just, what child needs $25,000 a month in child support? None.
Yeah. First of all, Tyrese only been married maybe 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
So
I think it's his second wife.
Right, exactly. It's a request. It's just a request. That doesn't mean that she's going to get it. If Tyrese does it right, because again, it's what we as men do not know, because she threw the carrot out there, which is the $25,000. If I focus on the $25,000, or the $20,000, I may wind up paying that. Versus, let me concentrate on when they were married.
Reginald, hold on, Reginald. I want to make this clear to everybody so that they understand your expertise on this. You have represented several celebrity clients with My Child Says Daddy in getting their child support reduced. Am I correct?
Yes, ma'am. She threw the carrot out there, saying, I'm requesting $20,000 per month. If Tyrese focused on his child, on when they were married, how much time did he really spend with that child? Let me go to court and tell the courts how I, as a parent, how much time have I been spending with my child? He may have been the primary caretaker. So once he showed the courts how he's been spending time with his child, and based off his income, because he's in a different bracket, LA County, LA, we work off of what they call a distal master. And because a distal master, they will throw the numbers in the computer and out comes the number. She also has a job as well. She's a therapist, if I'm not mistaken, or she worked for Children's Service. So therefore, once he concentrates on his child and not the money part, everything will fall into place.
Do you believe that, Attorney Spurling?
Well, I mean, that sounds like one of those things that they do. But here's the thing. She's throwing, what he's saying is that she's throwing a $20,000 number out there and it's negotiable. My thing is, even asking for $20,000 is an offer I wouldn't take. We need to impose caps on top of child support. There's no way you need $20,000 to maintain a child. This is not called ex-wife support. It's called child support. And a lot of women take that, and here's what a lot of men will tell you. They'll tell you that the woman doesn't even spend the money on the child, she spends it on herself. And so, and oftentimes in most states, there's no accountability for what she does with the money. That's why you have so many women, like I believe Dwayne Wade's first wife, she was standing out on the corner saying he abandoned me, even though she got a windfall for a divorce decree. But once the child support ended, she became angry. This system is corrupt and it's wrought with abuse, and it needs to be changed because, again, this is why you have men not getting married and not wanting to have children, because they don't want to deal with child support specifically and the family court system generally.
Dr. Umar, when we return, we're going to get to your comments about Tyrese and this celebrity windfall that women get when they have children by celebrities. We'll talk to you when we come right back on the Tammy McLeod Show on Fox Soul. And there are a lot of women in the chat room mad, assuming that these men on the panel don't want men to be responsible for their children. We have already said that every man who has a child should be responsible.
He must be bad.
But
let's take a quick break and come right back on the Tammy McLeod Show on Fox Soul. The Tammy McLeod Show on Fox Soul, where we talk about how child support impacts Black fathers. So, Attorney Spurling, I want to talk about, we were talking about Tyrese and his situation with his soon-to-be ex-wife. And we know that he had a problem with seeing his child and paying child support with his first wife. It seems to me that white celebrities are more concerned with keeping the family together versus how much money they have to shell out in child support. Is this something that you've experienced while dealing with child support issues?
Well, I practice personal injury law. I deal with toxic tort litigation, but I also have my dealings with the child support because I have 3 sons. And so, I have that issue myself, but no, it's not true. I mean, white men are catching as much hell as any other men from this system. Matter of fact, in the 1990s, they had a whole men's rights movement, the MRM. And then that gave way to, once that failed, and they realized there was too many politics associated with trying to get the laws changed to favor men, they said, hell with it. And now they have something called Men Going Their Own Way. This is a group of philosophy started by white men who said, you know what, we're just not going to play in the system at all. The juice is not worth the squeeze. They have people like Sandman, TFM, Barbarossa. These are all people who are part of the manosphere. And then you have their Black counterparts, Greg Adams, O'Shea Duke Jackson, and BGS Idmore. Men across the board are catching hell. It just so happens that if you're a Black man and you're in that socioeconomic class and that situation that has traditionally and historically suffered in this country, then it's just worse for you. But no, I would disagree with that. No, they don't take it any better. It's not as publicized as what we have to go through.
Dr. Umar, over $150 billion is owed to the government in back child support and associated fees, mostly by Black fathers. What are your thoughts on that?
And not only by Black fathers, but Black fathers who have to exist on an annual income of $10,000 or less. Again, I want to underscore the fact that the child support system is designed to crush the people who are most unable to meet the monthly obligation. It is further impoverishing Black men who are already impoverished. It's incarcerating them. It's separating them from their children. It is eroding the trust in the Black community between Black men and Black women. As some of the brothers said earlier, our marriage rates are going to be even worse than they are now in the next 10 to 20 years because child support has become such a major contextual variable within the dating game that a lot of men, young men, I speak on college campuses quite a bit, and they're telling me, Dr. Umar, I'm not getting married because I've seen how men have been mistreated and exploited and taken advantage of in the child support system. And not only do Black men have to speak up about this issue, Black women do as well, because a lot of very good Black women who would never take financial advantage of their child's father are sitting by watching their sisters do it, watching their aunts do it, watching their cousins and best friends do it. And as Dr. King said, we are in greater peril, not from the people who do evil, but from the ones who watch it and don't speak up. Black women need to start speaking up about other Black women who are taking advantage of the system.
Well, I'm glad I could be one of them tonight. Tyler Dordan, our soulmate, says over $150 quadrillion is owed to the Black man by the government. Woo, booyah. Reginald, please tell us how we can contact you with My Child Says Daddy.
You can always give me
30 seconds. We got 30 seconds.
You can always give me at mychildsaysdaddy.net or Facebook, My Child Says Daddy. I'm here about solutions. I understand how the system works, been through it, understand it. My job is to educate you so therefore you don't get caught up in it.
There it is. And he's got 30 years of experience. Donna Michi, Dr. Umar, Attorney Spurling, and Reginald, thank you so much for being on the Tammy Mack Late Show tonight. We have to have a part 2. I hope you guys are available for that. Until tomorrow, it's a blessing to be in your box. Bye, y'all.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Hey, what's up, everybody? If you appreciate what we're doing here, then make sure you contribute to the Cash App. Make sure you contribute to the PayPal. Make sure you donate to the Super Chat. It's only you and your contributions that keep this thing going. Thanks. What's up, you guys? This is Dennis Spurling, and I am back again. And here's the thing, folks. You guys see what happens when talking points from the manosphere go to the mainstream media. Oftentimes, they just really don't know what to say because they've never been confronted with those sort of facts presented in that manner. And so recently there's been a dust up, and we talked about this a little bit earlier. There's been a dust up between folks from the manosphere and folks from the Black Power movement, i.e. Mr. Umar Johnson, who I happened to be on the show with that day. But the bottom line is the talking points are there. Towards the end, you see what I did. I gave a shout out to BGS Ibmore, O'Shea Duke Jackson, and so many others, Coach Greg Adams, and so many others. They don't really have an answer for that. So either way, I think that's what's going to happen. Look, I got the link in the chat room. Anybody want to come in and comment on the show? It's right there. But in the meantime, we got so many people here in the chat room. Make sure you get the like, hit the like button. If you appreciate what I'm doing, hit the number 1 button. I want to make sure we hit the number 1 button, and go ahead and do that right now. I want to make sure you guys appreciate what I'm doing here. And the way you show that appreciation is by hitting the number 1 button. But one thing you guys did notice in my talking points, I made it a point to gain ground. I didn't just want to be on the defense with defending Black men, blah, blah, blah. We're the best. I actually went in and I quoted the 2015 CDC report, which says Black men are what? The most involved fathers of all groups. So I gained ground for us. Now, there was one point they wouldn't let me hit. They kind of cut me off. That whole $1.5 billion in back child support. Really, all that is women who have put their children on Medicaid, and then they've listed a man's name, and then that man then becomes responsible for paying 100% of the bill. Whether it's the father or not, whether there's been paternity proof or not, he's 100%. So those bills are actually Medicaid bills. It's not back child support. That's one thing I didn't get a chance to talk about on live. But look, here's the thing, folks.
I hope you appreciate what I'm doing. If you truly appreciate what I'm doing, contribute to the Super Chat, the Cash App, and the PayPal. We got a couple of guys who contribute to the Super Chat. We got a couple of Cash App. But what you got to understand is when I go out there and I'm saying those things, I'm putting my reputation on the line. Trust me, that day, their chat room was going berserk. They were angry. They weren't angry with everybody. They were angry with me because I was the one on there saying, hey, look, you got 20% of the men impregnating 80% of these women. They need to be more responsible with what they do with their reproductive parts. I said, what else? I said 51% of men, black men, aren't married and don't have child support. 31% of black men are married and live with their children. That leaves what, 18 to 20% of black men who are getting this 75 to 80% of women pregnant. So they didn't like that. And so that's why their chat room was going crazy. But you can't argue with these statistics. This is well known, okay? The fact that black men are the best fathers, or according to the CDC, the most involved fathers, that's not something you can argue with. They don't want to hear that. See, they want to hear the same old tropes. They want to hear, and you can tell, I have much respect for the rest of the channel and whatnot, but the bottom line is, you see, they didn't really have an answer. Some of the stuff they just didn't bother even talking about. It was just like, that's not something even we can even address. They weren't prepared for it because they haven't been hit with those sort of facts back to back to back in a coherent manner like that. You see, there was the other thing. There was no emotion in my delivery. They were just simply facts and more facts and more facts and more facts and more facts. So this is what you have to do. There's going to be an opportunity for you, gentlemen, and you may not appear on Fox Soul like I did. You may not appear on, you may not even have a YouTube platform, but as guardians of our reputation, and I'm drafting each one of you black men, as guardians of our reputation, you have to take the facts that you heard. You have to take the information that you heard. You can even mimic the way I said it. And what you do is you go out and you spread the word. See, I don't want to be here forever. I don't want to be in your face twice a day, every day. I don't want to do it. And I appreciate the donations. I appreciate what you're doing. It's what keeps me going. But trust me, I'd much rather be spending time with my children. I'd much rather be spending time with my family. I'd much rather be doing time working on my law cases and whatnot. But I'm doing this for a reason. I'm doing this because you need it. You need to be taught how to deliver these arguments, okay? And I know that my children probably would much rather me be picking them up from jujitsu, right? As opposed to sending an Uber, because daddy is doing a broadcast, right? And so daddy's doing broadcasts, daddy's talking to people on the internet about themselves, as opposed to spending time with Roman. And I appreciate you. You see daddy's working, okay? I know you guys might be disappointed because the Uber was a little late. This is Roman. Roman, say hello to everybody. And but I'm taking time away from my family, from my sons, to make sure that, you know, I'm doing what I think an uncle should do. I'm doing what some of you guys as fathers should have done. Teach you how to defend yourself, not just physically, right? But also verbally, because you need to know how to deal with people who are attacking you with their words and belittling you and making you, you need to know how to defend yourself. And that's what I'm doing here, folks. So at some point, I got to get back to spending time with this guy and the other guy, and possibly my lovely fiance, who's probably like, you always on the internet talking to men. But I'm doing this because I love you guys. You see, I love you guys, and I know that the information that I put out there will eventually come back to me. Not to me necessarily, but to my sons. And you will be a sounding board for, you know, for me. They'll say, damn, my dad said the same thing. You see, my dad used to say the same thing. I want you guys to speak up for yourselves, fellas. I don't want you to allow them to keep blasting black men's reputation into the dirt like they've been doing. It's enough time has passed for us being the whipping boys of America. The facts don't support them. The facts support us. The truth must come to light. We are great fathers. We're excellent fathers. You know, and if it takes something like the Red Pill movement or the Manosphere or whatever to galvanize us, to get us together and start speaking the truth, not just about relationships, but about all things, then that's what we need to do. Okay, I'm just one man, right? But all of us together, we are many men. If I can go on television and put myself out there like that and speak up on behalf of Black men, then you can do it by the water cooler. You can do it in conversation at the bar. You can do it at that family function when people are talking bad about brothers. You can do that because, see, this young man right here, right? This young man at the point of 18 years old, he's going to be a Black man, and he's going to inherit all of that weight that they have burdened on us. All of that negativity, all of those stereotypes and tropes. My son and your nephews and your little cousins and your little brothers are going to inherit that. And it is our job as Black men to make sure that the next generation of Black men and Black boys who come up behind us have it a little bit easier than we had. We should fight this fight, something that we are very well and able and prepared to do. The internet, the manosphere has provided us with an avenue where we can speak openly and freely and honestly and respectfully, because that's what I do. I'm very respectful, but more importantly, I'm truthful. And I do that not just for myself. I do it for you, and I do it for my sons. I do it for your sons. I do it for your nephews. And this is something that we have to do. We have to take this on our back, and we have to end all these negative tropes and all these stereotypes. All is that you take that truth and you make sure you feed it to everybody who will listen, and even the ones who don't listen. You keep pushing it. You keep pushing it. You speak the truth. You speak the facts. You be unapologetic with your defense of Black men and Black boys. And it doesn't matter whose feelings are hurt, because feelings don't matter, do they? No. Do they make Band-Aids for feelings? What else you want to tell them, Roman? You're a good fighter, right? What do you tell them about speaking up for themselves? The guys who are listening.
Like what?
I don't know. What advice would you have to give them? You know, you're pretty good at fighting. I saw you kick some kid with a reverse roundhouse kick. Is that what that's called?
Yeah.
Yeah. How long you been at that? A reverse hook kick to the side?
8 or 9 years.
8 or 9 years. But how old are you?
I'm 11.
And you've been fighting 8 or 9 years?
I think so.
You can't remember when you started fighting?
It's either 7, 8, or 9 years.
Some that's a lot of numbers. So you've been fighting before you can remember.
Yeah.
Who taught you how to fight?
Sensei.
And who else?
Sensei, Sigong, and Professor Honolulu.
And who is the one that told you it's more important to fight than to know how to?
Oh, Daddy.
What did Daddy say?
He said it's more important to learn how to fight than to read.
Yeah. Why did Daddy say that?
Because you can know how to read but still get bullied. But if you know how to fight, you won't get bullied. What
advice do you have to all these Black men who are out here allowing themselves to be bullied by other people's words?
They shouldn't let that happen.
Are you going to allow that to happen when you become a grown Black man? Let people beat you up with their words?
No.
No? You're going to speak up for yourself?
Mm-hmm.
That's right. All right, get out of here. All right, you guys. Love you guys. I appreciate it. This has been invigorating. I appreciate it. I hope you guys appreciate the work that I do. I do it not just for myself. I do it for my sons. But more importantly, I'm giving you guys an opportunity to see how it's done. I want to see you guys take my spot. Uncle D don't want to be here forever. I have other stuff I want to do. I want to see you guys get out there and advocate on behalf of yourself. I want you to stand up. I want you to speak the truth. I want you to stop allowing people to denigrate the reputation of Black American men. I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's Black men from other continents, Black men from the West Indies. I don't care if it's Black women, white men, whoever. It costs nothing for you to speak up for yourself. It costs nothing for you to respond to these lies with facts and truth. We all are dependent on each other, brothers, and I need it. And I know there are people out there with great reputations, but you did not see me bite my tongue at one point on national TV in front of all those people who are well known. I spoke the truth. I spoke the truth as we've discussed here on the Manosphere, because I'm your advocate, because I want to know that I want them to know what you're thinking. I want them to hear your words, even if it's through me. But I'm going to tell you, we are more powerful together when all of us begin to speak the truth, when all of us begin to sound like a cacophony of truth speakers. They're going to have to leave us alone. Everything will change when you black men begin to stand up. Set your boundaries, raise your standards, be the men that God wants you to be. I love you guys. If you appreciate what I'm doing, you know what to do. In the meantime, this is Uncle D, and I'm out.